So, Trev, as we get into this last segment, we did this the other day, and it was a lot of fun. What are the three keys to being to a championship run from the defense? The stuff above, a lot of it, all of it, was things that are in their control. A lot of these, two of these three keys will be things that are in Notre Dame's control. The first one is going to be a little bit of, it's kind of in your control, but in a lot of ways, it's not in your control. And that is the first key to success for this Notre Dame defense is health. You've got to get Howard Cross back and healthy. You've got to stay healthy as you get through the rest of the postseason. Notre Dame's depth and the way they've recruited in the last couple years under Marcus Freeman and Chad Bowden and the staff has allowed them to overcome losing both starting Vipers, your original starter and then your second starter who was playing just as well, if not better, than the first starter, at least against the pass. Patojo was playing really well against the run. Boubacar was a really impact pass rusher early in the season. And then you also lose, Howard Cross hasn't really been healthy for much of the season. You lose Benjamin Morrison at the midway point of the season. Kingston is now out. Howard Cross has missed the last 3.5 games. You just look at it and you're saying, boy, they've been able to overcome a lot of injuries this season. Your Jason Onye is out, not an injury, but he's out. Gabriel Rubio missed a chunk of the season. They've had to overcome a lot, as we talked about early. They're at the point now where they're okay if they can just stay healthy from here on out. If they, hopefully Kingston can play in this game. If not, hopefully at least get him back for the Georgia game. You don't want to go the whole postseason without him. He's been a very important part of this defense. You can kind of get by the last couple games without him. But if you want to make a title run, you're going to need all those linebackers present and accounted for, right, including Kingston. And so you're going to need him back at some point in time, hopefully. But you just can't sustain any more injuries. I don't know where you can point to and say, well, they'll be okay there. They'll be okay there. I think they're at the point now where it's like, no, you can't sustain anymore. You have to be able to stay healthy. That's going to be a huge, huge key to this, to a potential championship run, is this defense staying healthy down the stretch.
Yeah, man. Lauren Landau is going to have an opportunity to prove why they brought him into South Bend. It wasn't to get you through the first 12 games. A college strength and conditioning coach could have gotten you through 12 games. But Lauren Landau, with his NFL experience, having to prep teams to play 16, 17, 18 games a year is, I believe, a big factor as to why they brought him in. And you're right. It's not only getting healthy, it's remaining healthy. Because the playoffs and postseason is such an interesting time because, in the regular season, you can sit back and think, okay, well, we can sit this guy and hopefully, ideally, we get up and up. We'll call the game and such that maybe we can rest these guys to keep them fresh. This is playoffs, man. There is no, hey, we're going into this with the idea that we can rest somebody. If you rest somebody in the playoffs, it is a pleasant surprise. That's my thing. Right, you have to go into every game like it could be your last, because if you don't take care of business against IU, it doesn't matter who you have healthy for Georgia. You know what I mean? So it's going to be really interesting to see how they balance that out. Now, I do think that Notre Dame was helped out quite a bit this year with, even as tired as they looked at times against USC. I think they were helped out severely of only playing in the fourth quarter of like 4 games this year. You know what I mean? So I think that's really, really going to help. So for me, it comes down to staying healthy. Get healthy. It sounds like Howard Cross is going to be back just fine. He even dressed for the USC game. They just didn't run him out there. I think they just had him put on pants and a shoulder pad, and then they just kept his helmet, But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they fare from a health perspective, because I'm with you. It can't be anymore. It can't be. God, I don't even want to sit here and try to speculate what position group could potentially make it through. Just stay healthy, man.
Need it. No doubt. Let's get to number 2. And we've talked a lot about this in the show, and we're going to talk about it again here, Trev, one more time. If Notre Dame goes on a championship run, what is one thing that we will see relatively consistently from the defense? They are able to put pressure on the quarterback. That is an absolute must. And yes, we need to see better pass rushing from the edge, of course. But it's not just that. That's never going to be the strength of your defense. It just can't be a weakness. But it's your dudes got to be dudes, right? And where's Notre Dame dudes? Right up the middle. It's got Riley Mills has to play like an All-American in the postseason. Howard Cross needs to play like an All-American in the postseason. Jack Kaiser's got to make some more big plays. I mean, we talk about that big Xavier Watts interception, but it was Jack Kaiser getting through and just bursting through on a pressure that got in that quarterback's face and didn't let him read the defense and caused him to throw that ball up that Xavier Watts took back to the house. Drake Bowen's got to be at his best. Jaden Alsbury's got to keep doing his thing. If you get Kingston back, he gives you some of that. You're going to need your linebackers to be effective there. When you bring safety pressures, Don Schuler's a guy that they've used a lot on pressures this year. Xavier Watts has 6 pressures this year against the pass. So those are all things that you look at, Trev, and you got to say, I don't care how you do it. You're going to need it in different ways. Sometimes it's going to have to be the defensive line. Sometimes it's going to have to be the backers. Sometimes it's going to have to be the secondary. I don't care who it is. But overall, your pass rush is going to have to be consistent in the postseason. That's going to be a huge, huge part of this. If Notre Dame goes on a run, that'll be a reason why. If they don't, this will be one of the reasons why. If the defense doesn't play championship football, this will be one of the reasons why. If they win a championship, get to the championship game, this will be one of the reasons why. Their ability to have a relative consistent pass rush, and especially pass rush in big moments, are going to be huge. 3rd down, 2-minute, end of game, momentum need, it's not just, okay, you had 8 pressures, but okay, when did those 8 pressures happen? That's going to be a big part of a championship run if they make one.
Yeah, and on top of those, the one thing that I'll add is have answers if what you thought was going to work is not working. That's my thing, right? If you thought that this, 3rd down lineup that you had, call it a NASCAR package, whatever you want to call it, was going to get home on the quarterback, and it's not, be willing to adjust. Not just say, well, I just hope at some point it gets home. If a certain alignment isn't getting home the way that it should, you know what I'm saying? If linebacker pressures aren't working, or if blitzing up the A gap isn't working, look at outside pressures, send a corner fire, send a Don Schuler, Xavier Watts off the edge. Just have an answer for any possible scenario. Because what can happen is just like, well, I guess the pass rush isn't getting home today. Can't happen. Just can't. Experienced guys like Curtis Ork will eat you up if you give him time. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think if Notre Dame makes a championship run, I think that we can look back and say, yeah, man, the pass rush was getting home and it played the best that it did all season. It basically was a highlight reel of what, they're taking the Florida State game. They're taking the Virginia game. They're taking the pressure that they were able to get on Wegman and basically second half of the Texas A&M game in there. And it's got to be there. Got to be there, man.
What you don't want to do at the end of the year is have this thought of after game, if only they had Boubacar, or if only they had Batoho, if only they had, you want to say, hey, boy, we'd love to have him, but hey, we figured out a way to make it happen. And that's going to be a very, very important piece to this thing for Notre Dame. And then, of course, you still continue, got to recruit better at that position and develop better at that position and all that, especially on the edge. But the potential's there. I mean, if next year you look at like Bryce Young and Boubacar Traore, if he's healthy again, Logan Thomas will be in his second-year strength program. You're adding Chris Burgess. You look at guys like that. Burnham will now be in his 3rd year as an edge player. Tuilamak. I mean, there's potential for this edge to be really good getting after the quarterback in the future. It just right now they're just not there yet. But overall, as a defense, it just has to get there. And then the final piece to this, Trevor, is big plays are going to be huge for a championship run. And big plays are all encompassing. It's not necessarily big plays from a yardage standpoint. It's all encompassing. And so here's what I mean by it. It's you got to make a lot of them and not give up a lot of them. That's really what it comes down to. You can't give up a lot of big plays where it's 3rd and 2 and they, break one off for 40 yards, or it's 3rd and 11 and they break one off. They convert a 3rd down. It can't be where, your offense has all the momentum and then your defense gives up a big play for a score. It can't be those. If you give up a 50-yard run, you better flip and tackle that guy and hold him to a field goal, right? It's like those type of things. You can't give up a lot of those big plays. You can't have dropped interceptions in these type of moments. We saw that against Ohio State last year, right? Like some dropped interceptions, you can still beat A&M. You can still beat, Miami of Ohio. You can still beat Purdue. You can still beat Florida State. You can still beat all these teams. You're not going to beat Ohio State that way. How do I know that? Because I watched it happen. You know what I mean? I watched it happen. And that's the thing is when you get those opportunities on the biggest stage, you've got to make those plays. And I think that's going to be a big part of this team making a run is you don't give up a lot of big plays, but you make a lot of big plays. In big plays, what are big plays? Big plays on defense there's the obvious ones. Interceptions, forced fumbles you recover, defensive touchdowns. But it's not just that. It's 3rd and 2 and you stuff a running back in the backfield to make it 4th and 4. Now they got a punt. It's 3rd and 6 and you jump a route and you break it up and you force them to punt in a moment where your defense needs, desperately needs to get off the field. It means it's a 21-7 game. They're driving for a score, and Jaden Osbury tackles a dynamic athlete who's, people are throwing a ton of money at right now in the portal in space to stop them, hold them to a field goal that they then miss, that gets blocked by Bryce Young, right? It's that all that stuff is all encompassing. It's who steps up in the biggest moment and says, okay, our backs are against the wall. They're driving on us. I'm going to go out here and make this play. Or you're down. I think of like the Clemson game last year where Notre Dame's getting beat convincingly at halftime. What helped get them back in that game? First drive the second half, I believe, Xavier Watts picks off a pass, runs it back to the 1-yard line. You punch the ball in the end zone. Next thing you know, you're just like that. You're back in the game. You can't give up a lot of big plays, which means not just yardage, but then missed. What is also a big play that you're giving up? It's 3rd and 2. You have a chance to hit a quarterback, 3rd and 5, midfield. You miss a quarterback sack. He gets away, scrambles first down, hits someone for a first down, hits someone for a score, those type of things. That's giving up big plays. You missed an opportunity for a big play. Trev, big plays are going to be huge in this game. You got to make them, and you can't give them up. That's going to be a big, big key for this defense. And this is a defense, Trev, that scored 6 touchdowns this year. Would be nice to get another 1 or 2 in the postseason.
Man.
Right? It really would. But yeah. Just you don't even have to do that. Just make the big plays in that moment. Pick a guy off at midfield and let your offense go do its work, right? But get that ball.
Yeah.
Get that ball.
Yeah. Be selfish. Own all the big plays. To your point, don't give any up and want all of them for yourself. Just make sure that you're putting yourself in the best position that you can to win. And the defense has done that all season long. All season long. I mean, look, the more and more and more you look at college football, the more and more teams are willing to go for it on 4th down. Those are huge. Teams not converting on 3rd down, I view that as a turnover. That's like picking off the pass at the line of scrimmage, right? Like that is like stripping the quarterback on a sack and recovering it. So the way that I look at unconverted first downs, off of a 4th down, that I view that as a turnover. So do everything that you can to do it. You have an Indiana team coming to South Bend that they have nothing to lose. They're playing with house money. They weren't expected to be here in the first place. They're going to throw everything that they can at you. They're going to be going for it on 4th down. They're going to be testing your defense in every single possible way that they can. And you just have to be able to win that play. And then you fast forward. If Notre Dame bests IU, they go on and play Georgia, the SEC champ, the team that has no sort of quit or no sort of fight in them. A big play in that game could be if Notre Dame jumps out to a lead. Georgia, in every game that they've been able to come back and compete in, there's always that one play that you can go back to and be like, that was it. For the SEC championship game, it was that catch that Lucky kid had on the sideline where it just toe drag, barely got it in by an inch. I mean, if that kid was wearing a size 13, not a size 12, that's an incomplete pass. You know what I mean? But you can always go back and look at Georgia this year in the games that they've came back and either made it competitive or won. They have that play. A big play for Notre Dame is stopping that play. So winning big plays is going to be huge, crucial. Didn't know if I was going to say huge or crucial. So crucial.
That's it. I mean, anything else that kind of pops in your head, Trevor? I mean, we talked about a lot of things, but I think those 3 things stand up. I mean, you said, well, you don't have stopping the run in there. I mean, some things are assumed, right? Don't give up 250 rushing yards. But talk about what's going to be the really big keys that if they make this run, these 3 things go really well for Notre Dame. I think that's it right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only thing I would add is all encompassing. Just play disciplined football. No dumb penalties. No targetings. No. And I know targeting is now about as subjective of a penalty as you can call. Sometimes it just feels like if you hit somebody really hard, it's going to turn into targeting.
Well, it's like the hit on the quarterback from Georgia. The ref that threw that flag did not even remotely see the helmet. He just saw a big hit and he just immediately threw a flag.
Yeah.
And
Just put yourself in favorable positions. No dumb hands to the face penalties. No after the whistle stuff. Like there's been some close calls. You know what I mean? The Jordan Clark thing against Louisville, the Riley Mills thing against USC, the Bo Collins thing against Texas A&M. Like just play clean, smart football, handle your business in between the whistles. That would be the only other one that I have, because there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to come in and disrespect Notre Dame. And you have to be the man to say, you know what? Say what you want, do what you want. I'm handling my business between the whistles, between the white chalk, and on the scoreboard. So that would be my only other one, but that's all encompassing offense, defense, special teams. So that's where I'm at.
Trev, we did have one super chat that I want to get to before we get out of here from Maltavius. Thank you very, very much, my man. And Notre Dame defense was dog tired against USC, man. How do you feel about Landau's performance thus far? We were asked that earlier in the week, Trev.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I need to see how it goes to the season, but I'm not at all surprised that Notre Dame's defense was tired in that USC game. I kind of expected a little bit. And I don't think it's anything indicative of a strength conditioning issue. I saw that with a lot of teams in the last week of the regular season. And part of it was they were on the field a lot in that game, because of, their own issues, right? You got to make some stops, but then also the offense had a couple big plays that allowed them to get on the field. They had played a lot of snaps. They played 77 snaps against USC. That was the most they had played since actually the highest number of the season. Now, some of that was late in mop-up moments, but they played 67 against Army, and those are physical snaps. 68 against Virginia, 69 against Florida State. They played a lot of snaps down the stretch, and with no Howard Cross, with no, you started to see some of the lack of depth at certain positions like corner, D tackle start to kind of wear on guys a little bit. And I think those are big reasons why you saw this defensive line wear down a little bit, why you saw the linebackers wear down a little bit, why you saw some guys maybe not be quite as sharp. I mean, Adon Schuler and Christian Gray both played over 500 snaps this season. And these are guys that last year played. I mean, Christian Gray played 75 snaps last season. In the 4 games before playing the 79 against USC, he played 33, 54, 54, and 57. Like, that's a lot of snaps. He didn't play over 50 snaps in any of the first 5-6 games of the season. You know what I mean? You look at Riley Mills, and he had to play 64 snaps that game. He had played over 40 snaps in 4 of the 5 previous games. I just think, look, that's a lot of snaps. And Adon Schuler, 551 snaps. He played 27 snaps the year before. And some of these guys are also playing on special teams, which is something I think they need to maybe look at next year in November. I understand this desire to have, certain guys be on special teams, but you also got to make sure that you're being smart about it. Don also played 63 snaps on special teams. So not only did he play, 66 snaps against USC on defense, he also played 9 snaps on special teams. You got to be more willing to sub out some of those guys. Now, this year, it's hard to do. Who's the healthy safety that Luke Talich is already on special teams, right? I mean, you can't sub the Don out for Luke. Next year, maybe it's a little bit different when you get Jadon Blair here and you have guys like Dallas Golden and, some of the young linebackers that aren't redshirting and things like that. And maybe in the postseason, it's like, hey, look, we can play this guy now because he's red shirt doesn't matter. So we can put Bronte Johnson on some of these coverage units because we're not worried about blowing his red shirt now. Perhaps that's it. Maybe now Carson Hobbs maybe plays in a couple special teams because you're not worried about blowing his red shirt now. So those are all things you can kind of look into and think about that could factor into, what some of these guys get to do in the postseason. But those are just things that I think it was just normal, just worn out from a long season. And then also that team had flown from the middle of the country in Indiana to New York City the week before, came back, had Thanksgiving, went out to LA for an afternoon game. I just think all those things factored in. I don't view it as a Lauren Landau issue. If the team wears out in the postseason, that'll be more of a Lauren Landau issue because you've now had 3 weeks to prepare and get back to being good health. But and they were so fresh against Army. That's the other thing is they were not fresh. They were fast against Army. I just think they put a lot into that. And the other thing too, guys, is they were worn out, but they also just played poorly. And that caused them to have to play more snaps because their own mistakes in that game caused them to play more snaps. Don't make some of those technical assignment mistakes and you're off the field more. Maybe you're not as tired in the second half and you could put that team away.
Sure.
I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it pertains to the super chat, and thank you, Maltavius, for the super chat. I mean, it's for me, how do I feel about him so far? I mean, fine. It's just incomplete. You know, like I said before, with staying healthy, you brought Lauren Landau in to basically help your team from games now to the national championship, not games 1 through 12. So a little incomplete right now, but I mean, so far, fine. I mean, I know injuries have been a problem this year, but some of them have been freak ones. Like, I mean, Ashton Craig got rolled up on. Like, there's nothing a strength.
Jordan Patel hose.
Right.
Boubacar's was just, I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to do about that, right?
Yeah. You know, like the one question mark is like, I still don't know what happened to Ben Morrison. Like,
Still can't. I mean, I don't know if it happened during the game. I don't know because I look at the game and I'm like, you look fine to me. But sometimes, you know, like adrenaline wears off and you're like, ooh, I have some pain here that I didn't really like. It was a little sore during the game, but now that, you know, like my first career start in college, I injured my ankle in the first half, had to come out, miss a play at the end of a series, and I went back in and I was fine. I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. First pass I threw that game hit a linebacker right in the chest. But I rallied back, baby, and I threw a 32-yard touchdown pass to Tom Brown with less than a minute left for us to win 31-27. So I just want to point that out. Led us on a 2-minute drive, threw that touchdown pass. Boom. I felt great. Was jumping up. I mean, run off the field. I'm jumping up into my lineman's arms. I'm super excited. I'd sprained my ankle during the game. We had a 4-hour bus ride home. About an hour into that bus ride, my adrenaline wears off, and I have never been in that much pain ever in my life. I was miserable on that bus ride home because I didn't have that adrenaline, which helped me not feel that ankle injury. For all we know, Benjamin did something and he just didn't feel it because there was a lot of adrenaline. But then once you get out there and maybe, who knows? I don't know. But for the most part, it's like the early injuries had me concerned. But what we said at the time is, let's let the season play out. If this continues, then maybe there's a big problem here. But it didn't. They haven't had a lot of new injuries here down the stretch, except for Howard Cross, who got his knee rolled up on. I saw Kingston Williams' injury. Somebody ran right into his knee and pushed his knee back. That's not a strength conditioning issue. It's just one of those things that happens in football.
Right.
But if they wear down in these last 4 games, even with the 3-week bye and minimum 9 days between every game, then you start to say, okay, is this guy really, you know, is his plan built for them to have, you know, championship run? But so incomplete, but so far I'm pleased with what I've seen for the most part so far.
Yeah, totally.
Just got to see him finish.
Absolutely.
Right? So yeah, good. That's a very good question though. Very good question. So Trev, that's it, man. Why don't you go ahead and lead us out of here, buddy?
Yeah, absolutely. Another fun show today, guys. I mean, we're still counting down the days. We're about 8 days out now from Notre Dame's really college football's first NCAA home playoff game ever. And it is very, very fitting that it is taking place inside of Notre Dame Stadium, I will say. So you guys know what it is. Tomorrow, Friday, free-for-all mailbag. Bryan and I will be back here at 2 p.m. Don't forget to check out the women's basketball team. They're playing tonight against UConn. I believe UConn's undefeated. It's just kind of that old school Big East matchup from back in the day. So really exciting stuff. But before you get out of here, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast with your friends and family and anybody that you know loves Notre Dame as much as you do. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform that you watch this on. And of course, subscribe to us on the message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So until tomorrow, 2 p.m., that's Bryan. I'm Trev. We will see you guys back here tomorrow on the Irish Breakdown podcast.